Many of us have lots of experience with emotions. Joy, fear, sadness, happiness. These are feelings we all know well and have experienced many times in our lives. So what does it feel like to be in the emotional quadrant, which is also called the water quadrant? You guessed right, emotional. This is really where the roller coaster rides happen. For many people, this up and down energy makes the emotional quadrant the most challenging of all quadrants. To master this quadrant, we first have to understand what this emotional business is all about. And it begins by understanding what water really stands for. In the book Predict Your Future, Elizabeth Clare Prophet explains, "We have experience with water. We touch water, it is substance that flows. It needs a matrix to have form. From our experience of the joy and the movement of water, we come to know God as His feelings flow in the realm of spirit. This is how we can use nature as a point of meditation, as a take-off point whereby our soul slips, as it were, into the dimensions of spirit." So in this quadrant, we're learning how to move gracefully through life as the spiritual energy of God expresses itself in our feeling world and our emotions. That's not always easy. Think of emotion as energy in motion. Our emotions fluctuate so much based on what we experience on a daily and hourly basis that it's often hard to keep the ship steady and be not moved by what happens to us. Now here's another key. The emotional quadrant is not only the most challenging quadrant for most of us, because we simply have not yet fully mastered our emotions, but it's also the beginning of the uphill journey to get back to the 12 o'clock line. If we take a look at the clock again, you can see that lines 12 through 5 show a downward movement. We're going downhill from the high point of the 12 o'clock line in the etheric quadrant. So these first 6 lines are easier. But once we come to the line 6, we have to go back up. In order to make that change, we need to have a certain momentum, so it's not too hard to make the climb. But if we haven't passed our tests of the first 6 lines, it's much harder to go back uphill. So as you can see, the more we know about our cycles and the harder we work on transmuting our karma and passing our tests on the first 6 lines, the better we'll do when we have to climb back up through the second half of the cosmic clock. As you've seen in the previous videos in this series, the etheric quadrant is associated with winter and the mental quadrant relates to spring. The emotional quadrant is associated with summer. Elizabeth Clare Prophet says, "With summer comes the testing of the emotions. Wars and demonstrations and sometimes rioting and all kinds of turbulence happen in the summer to the planet as a whole and to people as they find that their emotions are being tested. Even the heat we experience is a product of mankind's misqualified substance in the astral body of the planet. And in our coping with life in the summertime, we must take into account the ever-present tests of the emotional body." All right, I think you have a good idea now of the energies we're dealing with in the emotional quadrant. Time for the details. Let's start with the 6 o'clock line. Cancer got harmony, a water sign in the water quadrant. Elizabeth Clare Prophet says, to pass the initiations on the 6 o'clock line, the first hierarchy in the emotional quadrant, we must master the flow of harmony. We must be able to hold the reins of harmony in our fellow bodies. This is not an easy testing, in as much as it is a testing of the water element, of energy in motion. It requires that we keep harmony while in motion, in action, when for some it is difficult enough to keep harmony while standing still. The initiations of the hierarchy of Cancer always involve a decision. Always being harmonious is really difficult for most of us. And honestly, I have never met a human being, including myself, who can always keep their harmony. However, I think that in Jesus we have a great example of how to do that. He could keep his cool under the most trying circumstances. As I say this, you might think of him getting angry at the priests selling all kinds of mundane things in the temples. But there's something like a divine righteous anger, and this was definitely the case in that instance. It wasn't that he lost his harmony, but that he was really upset with them for not honoring God's holy place, which is absolutely correct and righteous. As you can see, the misqualifications of the 6 o'clock line are indecision, self-pity, and self-justification. Indecision is something all of us have experienced at one time or another. If you pay attention, there are some people who seem to have a lot of problems with making decisions. It is likely that they have a Cancer influence somewhere in their astrology, or are on the 6 o'clock line for the year or the month. Elizabeth Clare Prophet says, On the 6 o'clock line, you are required to transmute the misqualified energies of indecision, self-pity, and self-justification. You may be a very decisive person ordinarily, but when you bump into this quadrant in the tests of the hierarchy of Cancer, you suddenly find that you can't make up your mind about a thing. It doesn't matter which way you go, it could be equally possible either way. You can see all sides of the question, and the decision is almost the last thing you want to be involved with. This brings on extreme self-pity for your plight, and then self-justification because you didn't make the decision. So as you can see, indecision is a downward spiral that we definitely want to avoid getting caught in. Self-pity is feeling sorry for oneself. Whatever happens to you is someone else's fault, and you're the poor victim. If you didn't pass a test, then it was the teacher who was really asking mean questions. If you didn't pass your driver's license exam, it was the examiner who was really a bad person who just didn't want you to pass. Poor you! I think you get the gist of it. Well, as Elizabeth Clare Prophet said, if you didn't make a firm decision, you start self-justifying why. You cast yourself in the victim role, and that role keeps you from moving forward until you snap out of it. Other related misqualifications of the 6 o'clock line are chaos, gossip, endless chatter, etc. All of these can totally destroy your God harmony on this line. None other than the Ascended Master Serapis Bey is the hierarch of the 6 o'clock line. Serapis Bey, hierarch of the Ascension Temple at Luxor, Egypt, working diligently with the great seraphim and cherubim, initiates us in the flame of purity that we call God harmony. He was a priest in the Ascension Temple on the lost continent of Atlantis, and just before that continent sank, he carried the flame from the temple to Egypt. His watchword is discipline. To pass the initiations of the 6 o'clock line, the first hierarchy in the emotional quadrant, we must master the flows of harmony. We must be able to hold the reins of harmony in our 4 lower bodies. This is not an easy testing, in as much as it is a testing of the water element, of energy and motion. Okay, let's move on to the 7 o'clock line, Leo, God, gratitude. Leo is a fire sign in the water quadrant. Most Leos I know are very gracious. They have big hearts and are always there to help. God gratitude is a beautiful energy. It brings great blessings into your life. As you can imagine, ingratitude is one of the misqualifications of this line. On the 7 o'clock line, there is ingratitude that comes through the failure to appreciate God, that comes on a thoughtlessness and spiritual blindness and carelessness. It's a very dense kind of consciousness, like the bull in the china shop. The perversion of spiritual blindness on this line of the clock is a really important energy to overcome. It means that we simply can't see the presence of the divine in our lives and in the things that happen to us. We fail to see that there's a purpose in everything we experience, something that makes us question our assumptions and that can help us grow spiritually. You can see how this goes hand in hand with ingratitude. If we can't be grateful for God's blessings in our lives, we're much more likely to become blind to these gifts and graces that the universe would like to give us, and to the spiritual path that heaven has laid out for us. The hierarch of this line is the Goddess of Liberty. She's a great cosmic being who has anchored her presence in the Statue of Liberty in the harbor of New York. Elizabeth Clare Prophet says about her, she once said that immigration is I am gratitude in action. She was the inspiration for the Statue of Liberty, who holds the lamp in the port of New York welcoming immigrants. Gratitude on the 7 o'clock line is continually affirming all of the gifts and graces of the Spirit and our appreciation for life. Each time we say, I am grateful, we increase the flow in the feeling body. This plays a tremendous part in balancing karma. The flame of gratitude is an important key in the turning of the cycles of the cosmic clock. Okay, let's move on to the last line of this quadrant, the 8 o'clock line with Virgo and God Justice. God Justice is one of those divine qualities that are not easy to understand at first sight, because our sense of justice is so strongly influenced by the human injustices we see around us all the time. God Justice means that there is a right way, a righteous way, for everything that exists. It means that the universe is just in its very core because it is completely permeated by the nature and the presence of God. So in this line of God Justice, we often face the test of accepting that whatever happens, even if it is seemingly unjust, happens for a reason that ultimately will benefit our spiritual evolution. Virgo is an earth sign. It's the point where any problems we experience in the emotional quadrant become the most tangible and physical. That's why on this line we can be completely caught up in and overcome with little details and grievances that really shouldn't matter. The misqualifications on this line reflect this. They are injustice, frustration, and anxiety. Elizabeth Clare Prophet says, "The injustice is the varying in our members. Our emotions versus the mind versus the emotions. The memory interfering, the sense that someone has wronged us, the sense of struggle that makes the struggle. That sense of injustice comes out when you have a division in the members on the Gemini line. The Gemini members wearing. Always the sense that they've been wronged, life has cheated us. All of these struggles are really internal, but we imagine that we are acting them out with other individuals. Other people who are really other aspects of God in various stages of evolution. Each time we engage in that struggle over the sense of injustice, we leave a record in the subconscious. To overcome this sense of injustice, we have to rise to the statement of Portia, there is no injustice anywhere in the universe. If something unjust happens to us, we transmute it with a vial of flame, challenge it, get to the bottom of it, find out what our karma is and move on, let go of it. Portia is the twin flame of Saint Germain. I think all of us have experienced frustration and anxiety at one point in our life and know how these energies can derail us. So it's really important that we keep our harmony and don't engage in these lower vibrating energies. The Ascended Master Lord Lanto is the hierarch of this line. Lord Lanto, an ancient Oriental master, keeps the flame of God justice with the Lords of Wisdom under the hierarchy of Virgo on the 8 o'clock line. He ascended after his final embodiment as an emperor of China at the time of Confucius, around 500 BC. He was the presiding master of the Royal Teton retreat in Wyoming until 1958, when he passed that office to the Ascended Master Confucius. Lanto now serves as the Lord of the Wisdom Ray, the second ray, disseminating holy wisdom and divine illumination into the consciousness of mankind. One of his initiations is that of co-measurement, attaining a sense of our individual worth. We do this by internalizing the principle of God justice to realize that all have equal God potential. Wow! Doesn't it feel like we've just gone through the ringer of the emotional quadrant ourselves? To help us get a grip on these lines of the clock, here's a helpful comment by Saint Germain about the violet flame and this quadrant that I'd like to share with you. As you can see from the hours of services that are recommended, 5:30 in the morning and also in the evening hours after dinner, you are mostly concentrating on the astral or emotional quadrant of your cosmic clock, which is also charted in the morning and in the evening, thus covering both ends of the day in that quadrant. Since most of you have the most problems in that quadrant, you can see what vast progress can be made in the hours between 6 and 9 o'clock. So the Master advises all of us to use the vital flame between 5:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. to better master our emotions. That is a great tip. Okay guys, that's it for today. See you in the next video where we discuss the physical quadrant, which is the last quadrant of the cosmic clock. Thanks for watching and have a great vital flame day.